What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of working on any specific projects like MB Miata, NA Miata, or Minibike itself, I'm kind of going to be doing like a mix of everything, kind of bringing you guys along with what I do on my weekends, kind of the little stuff I don't really film too much, and a lot of the stuff I've been kind of pushing off, like doing an oil change or like fixing a couple little things on the NA, fixing a couple things on the MB that I haven't been really wanting to film and make like a whole video about because it's not really worth it. So if anything, kind of want to compile it all, put it into this weekend, do as much work as possible, and then kind of see what happens. So as far as I know, we're going to start off by heading over to a buddy's house and picking up a spare diff for the NA Miata. We actually got to go pull that out of a parts car, so that's going to be fun. So we'll see how that goes. But he does have a couple cool cars and a couple cool mini bikes, so I'd love to go check those out and maybe show you guys a little bit. I'm not going to shove the camera in his face too much, but if he wants to, I don't mind filming him if he wants to talk about it a little bit. But so far, get diff pulled out, maybe ride the mini bike around a little bit. I'm going to load that up as well just because maybe we'll go cruise around, do something. And then as far as that, we'll kind of figure out what today's going to happen. Maybe work on any of the Miatas, see what I can do. Maybe work on the mini bike later, start 3D printing the new LED bracket for that. Could probably show you guys designing that up or doing any of that. So just kind of see how today goes. So tomorrow I'm kind of busy with some family stuff, so I'm not going to have too much time to film. So that's why I'm kind of compiling everything into today on Saturday and trying to film as much as possible, get a video out for you guys on Monday. Because right now, kind of stuck in between all the projects, needing a little bit more time than I would need to like film a video on like a weekend. And so I want to have a few days to kind of work on the cars, and then if anything I can start ordering up some parts now, get them on their way so that I can have them for future videos. And I got a couple big plans. Like I know this Friday I want to bring the go-kart back out because I haven't touched that thing in like a month, and I got a pretty good story on that thing, so I'm gonna have to bring that thing back out, and that thing's gonna take a little bit of time to work on. Just some big things like retuning the Miata, putting new injectors in it. That's going to take at least a few days just driving around, getting some tuning time on it and doing that. The drift trike project, I need to get a whole new frame for that, so that's going to be another project. And mini bike, so far, she's holding up, but I do want to still figure out some like seat suspension, maybe try to do some front suspension, figure out something, just make it a little bit more comfortable to ride. But other than that, that's kind of just like a little gist of what's going to be going on in today's video. So hope you guys enjoyed. Let's pack up some tools, load up the mini bike in the truck, and we'll hit the road, slide over to my buddy's house, and get pulling out this diff. She ain't going nowhere now. Oh, it's way more solid. What's up, guys? So I think last I filmed, I was loading up the mini bikes and some tools and heading over to a buddy's house to start pulling out a diff, and then going to ride around a little bit, and then ended up just really not pulling out the camera at all. Ended up getting over to his house, cracking down, getting to work, ripping out the diff, and then getting that all loaded up into the truck. So I got that in the truck. I'll unload that here in a minute. But then we ended up taking a look at all his toys and his project cars, his Miata, because he couldn't figure out why it wasn't running. And then we ended up just hopping on the bikes and going riding for like 3 or 4 hours. He's got a couple cool trails around his area, so we'll definitely be riding with him in the future and checking out his bikes a little bit more in depth. But other than that, didn't really want to shove the camera in his face or do any of that. So think I got home at like 6 o'clock, and I left here at like a little after 12. So it's been a long day already, but I ended up just chilling out for a little bit. It's like 8 o'clock now, and now I can get back to work on the toys. Actually, now that I got a little bit more motivation, so I think I'm gonna start off by just cleaning up the garage a little bit, getting a lot of this all cleaned up, get all my tools put back in the box, and just clean up the area a little bit, make it look a little bit better, get the toys, get the mini bike in, because still got it outside. Then we'll probably start working on the MB Miata, because this thing does have crank wobble, so I do got to fix that. I think I ended up just installing the crank pulley wrong, so we'll deal with that in a minute. So okay, I'm gonna spend the next like 10-20 minutes getting the garage all cleaned up, and then I'll catch up with you guys and start working on this thing. Now that I got the garage all cleaned up and got all my tools put away in the box, so now we can actually start working on the projects here. Got the mini bikes pulled up in the side, and we got the red one over there. That's my buddy Tarks. We do got to do some work on that, like drill and tap the crank, because we ended up stripping that out, so that's gonna be a fun little project. Even got the diff unloaded for my truck. I did end up picking up the whole PPF as well with the diff, just because it was really just stuck with these little spacers here, and they're just a pain to get out, so he didn't really need it, and I thought, why not take it, because I've always been planning on building a diff mount for Miatas. That's a little bit different than the stock way, because if you guys know Miatas, the diff mount bolts are pretty much like the lowest part of the rear end, and you can scrape them away very easily, and they are a pain to get out once they are pretty scraped down. So my plan is to slam the MB as low as possible, so I've been wanting to build up a little kind of bracket that moves the diff mount bolts into a better location so they won't really get scraped away. And it might be something I can kind of design up with my 3D printer, print it out, and then if it comes out good, I can get it transferred to metal, and then it might be a cool little product I could sell in the future. But for right now, we're gonna be working on the MB Miata, getting the crank pulley all fixed up, because this thing does have crank wobble. I really think the whole thing is I ended up tightening down the crank pulley after I put the belts on and all that, so it kind of threw it off alignment a little bit. So should be super easy just to pull off the belts real quick, loosen up the crank pulley bolts, and just readjust it, get it all lined back up, and then just make sure all my tolerances are clear with the crank sensor and all that, get the belts back on, and she should be good to go. So the only thing I can tell that, just because I can get the socket on the 3 of the crank bolts, but that 4th one is just impossible to get a socket on it, so something's definitely off with the crank pulley alignment. So it should be super easy, so I'm gonna get to work on that, just start tearing a couple things down, get that all fixed up, and then we can actually start working on a little bit on the NA. I got some hood struts for that, and then I also want to maybe do an oil change and get a belt swap on the mini bike, just because I can tell after today she is definitely wore down a little bit. So let's get to work on this thing, and then we can see what we can get finished up tonight. So ended up ripping off the belts for the AC and power steering, and then the alternator as well, and then taking off the crank pulley too. That last bolt that was just pain to get a socket on was a pain in the ass. Like, for some reason you couldn't get any skinny socket on it for whatsoever. So I ended up just finally getting it eventually. Got the crank pulley off, pulled it off of there. Everything's looking good down on the crank there. Luckily it didn't cause too much or cause any damage really. I didn't really drive this thing at all. Any driving I did you guys saw in the video, so it wasn't really too much. So time to just get this all slapped back together, tighten up the crank pulley without any belts on it this time, and then I'm probably actually just going to start it up with no belts on it, just to save me the hassle. If this thing is still wobbling, I can figure it out now instead of having to pull all the belts back off and do all that. So should be super quick. Get that slot back up on there, tighten her up, and she should be good to go. I got the crank pulley all bolted back up on the motor, torqued it all down, so everything's all set to go. So now we can start this thing up and see if the belt or the crank pop is still wobbling. So I'm gonna get the jump pack on there, because this thing hasn't been started in who knows how long, and she is dead as a bone. So let's get this baby started, see if she's still crank wobbling. I swear to God, if she is, I'm gonna be a little salty. Like a dream. Good to go. Now to get those belts slide back on there, and then she's pretty much ready for the road. Alrighty guys, so I ended up putting the belts back on, and I started it and it had a little bit of a squeak, so I readjusted the belts, but everything's looking good now, and no more crank wobble, and all the belts are running nicely, so this thing is pretty much ready to roll. Now we can actually start doing some of the fun stuff we've been wanting to do with this thing, so you'll see that coming up in the future projects. But now probably start working on the NA Miata or the mini bike, and see what we can get done tonight. So I just ended up letting the MB Miata kind of just run for a little bit and kind of just charge up the battery, just because it hasn't ran in probably a month or two. And I'm super stoked how this thing came out. All the belts are perfect now, no more crank wobbles, so this thing's pretty much ready for anything I planned for it. I probably said a little bit about that, but I got some big plans for this thing coming up in future videos, so do expect that coming up. So now we can get to work on the NA Miata. It's something super simple. This is why I've never really wanted to film it. It's literally just a hood prop kit. I got this thing back in Christmas time, so a few months back. Shout out to my brother Devin for this. So finally getting to it and getting this installed instead of having this stupid metal prop. It's gonna be kind of hard to see, but stupid metal prop, and mine's not even in the engine bay. I've been rocking it in the back window, and it's kind of a pain because I have to grab it to open up the hood, to hold up the hood. So it's kind of nice I have these. So these things are yellow carbon fiber. They don't really match the car 100%, but they might look kind of cool. If anything, I could always wrap this in the future, but it should be a super simple kit. There's literally 2 steps to this kit, but it weirdly enough came with a bunch of extra brackets. So I guess we'll kind of figure that out as we go. Hopefully it's just super simple and get it just bolted on and then it just works. So I'm gonna get to work on that and I'll show you guys once I finish that all up. Just got the hood shocks put on the NA Miata and I'm stoked with how they came out. They definitely took a little bit of finessing to get them to fit right. That's typical Amazon stuff, because I know he showed me this link before he bought them just to make sure they fit. And they do fit. They just, if you have a show car, I will just say, expect your hood gap to be a little messed up and maybe take out an extra bolt on the fender, because the hood shock ended up hitting the bolt that's like right around in this section, which is weird, but I'll show you guys these real quick. So just pop the hood, get about to this point. She definitely got some pressure, so it's all good. It holds it out. The only thing is I did lose my drift hood, where I was able to put the hood pretty much 90 degrees straight up, so it kind of sucks about that, but this is gonna be way nicer than having the pole right in the middle somewhere and kind of get in the way whenever I'm working on this thing. But they came out pretty nice. They kind of just replaced one of the fender bolts right there, and then they have a little bracket that bolts right onto the hood there, so super easy. Just bolt those up. I ended up just messing up that bracket, putting it like 3 different ways, and I finally figured out that it's supposed to go like that, so it works for now. So now that this is all finished up, we can pretty much tuck her away from the night, and then I might end up dragging this thing out. I do want to do a belt replacement on this, and then possibly an oil change if I have time tonight, and if I feel like actually getting a little oily tonight, because this thing has been due for one, and I can definitely tell the belt on this thing is feeling a little wore out after today. So let's get to work on this thing, get this all finished up, and then I think that might be calling it a night from there. Ended up just digging out the off-road mini bike from the corner over there, and then get it propped up on some wood. Then I pulled off the torque converter cover. And this is like the first time I really pulled it off since I even installed this thing like a week or 2 ago. And this thing's got a bunch of rubber dust pretty much everywhere, all up in the cover and all over the plate as well. I've been rubbing it all around, but you kind of see that there. But yeah, there's just rubber dust falling everywhere. So I'm really curious on why this thing is kind of just shredding belts. It is a 30 series torque converter. It might need a 40 series just since it's got like a header, intake, no governor, but it is still stock jetting, but it is kind of technically an upgraded motor, so it might just be making a little too much power for kind of this setup, but I would think it would be fine. So if you guys have any ideas, I would love to know. The belt is put on correctly, like whatever way it says, the engine way, it is on correctly. And these are lined up like pretty much perfect. I even added a couple extra washers that then the kit came with just to make sure it's 100% dialed, and it still seems to be just shredding the belts pretty good. So if you guys have any ideas, I'd love to know. But for right now, probably just end up swapping the belt real quick just so it has a fresh belt for next time I take this thing out, get the cover back on there. And I think tomorrow morning, before I have to run to do some family stuff, I'm gonna knock out an oil change on this thing real quick, and then I'll probably wrap up this video from there. So catch you guys in a little bit once I finish up this belt. Actually, I'll probably just catch you guys in the morning once I have this belt done and doing an oil change on this thing. What's going on, guys? So it's the next day. I ended up just waking up this morning and cracking down, working on the mini bike. So I already started off by pulling off the skid plate, just because that's kind of a little bit of a pain in the ass, and I had to pull off my little storage box that holds the battery for the LED lights. And I totally forgot last night, I ended up 3D printing the new bracket for the LED lights, so we can probably get those installed today as well. Those should be pretty quick. They just got to get them all bolted up and all that. and knock out the oil change real quick. So I just got everything all set up. I even cracked the oil drain. So let's take a look at how this oil looks. To be honest, I have no clue on how many hours on it. I'm gonna say about 10 to 15-ish. I know I should probably do them a little more often, but it'll be alright. Let's see, hopefully it don't make a mess. Oh, really not too bad. It's a little dark, but it'll be alright. Yeah, it looks like we're about to have a mess, so this is gonna be fun. Glad I took off the oil pan though, or the skid plate I mean, just because that would have been pretty much all over the place and would have been a huge mess. So I'm gonna let this drain out, get some new oil poured into it, and then we can actually start working on the LED lights and getting those all mounted up. These transmission funnels are like perfect for doing mini bike oil changes. Let's see. That might work money. Scratched up the frame a little bit, but yeah. I definitely need to get one of those little hoses that go in the drain plug and extends out like a foot, so it makes it easier to do an oil change on this thing instead of having to pull off the whole skid plate and all that, because it's like a 10-15 minute job just to like pull this whole thing off, get it off, get the battery box off, and then putting it back on is another game. So yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely gonna look into that. I think I looked them up on Amazon. They're like 20 or 30 bucks. I am using 5W40 if you guys are curious. I like Castrol. I run it in both of my cars, and it seems to be the best oil so far, at least that I've ran. Get the cover put back on. And this thing will be ready to roll. Actually, let's get the LED bar lights on too. You guys just saw, threw some oil in the mini bike, and that thing is all good to go. Threw on the side cover, and she is mint at this point. So now we can work on the lights. I ended up already swapping over the lights onto the new brackets. My problem with this 3D printed brackets, I keep breaking the eyelid off. So that's what it's normally supposed to look like with two eyelids. And I just break one off and whatever right here. Yeah, the little eyelid. So it's just with these tiny little bolts, they don't really support the weight too much or really distribute it too much on this bracket. So I ended up ditching the bolts and just running some zip ties all the way through, just so it kind of straps it more to the bracket, gives it a little bit more contact patch. So I think this should be more than solid. So now I'm gonna toss this on the bike real quick, and I'll show you guys once this thing's finished up. I just got the LED bars all mounted back up, and they are looking sweet. I'm wired all back in. I'm not really gonna test them out and plug a battery in and all that. If you guys wanna see that, I did do a video on building this whole headlight kit and building the adapter wiring and all that. So if you guys wanna check that out, I'll put a little tag up in the right-hand corner. But other than that, I think it's gonna finish off today's video, working a little bit on all the projects and kind of just prepping for future projects coming up, because everything's gonna take a little bit of time, like slamming this thing onto the ground. I gotta put some bigger injectors and retune this thing. I have a new diff for it that we're gonna clean up and do all that. I do wanna design up that bracket I was talking about, so I'll probably do a video on that, and then just getting the bike ready for whatever's to come on the trails, or planning on some new suspension or something like that. So that's pretty much it for today. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hope you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and peace out.